Alright, my editing skills are crap, but can the same thing be said about Revolt? Stick around and find out. Rum-ticka-dum-dum-dum. Rum-ticka-dum-ticka-ticka-ticka-dum-dum. Wow, brow. Rum-ticka-dum-dum-dum. Rum-ticka-dum-ticka-ticka-dum-dum-dum. Brow, brow. That's not a theme from anything. Trying to evoke something that was military and then like big metallic alien. I don't know. Anyway, I'm Peter Franson from christiangeekcentral.com and Spirit Blade Productions here with my uncut review. Uncut review. I'm supposed to do the hand motion. Of Revolt. The IMDb synopsis reads, the story of mankind's last stand against a cataclysmic alien invasion in the war-ravaged African countryside. A U.S. soldier and a French foreign aid worker team up to survive the alien onslaught. Their bond will be tested as they search for refuge across a crumbling world. For those listening to the podcast wondering, hey, where's that Maze Runner review? I reviewed kind of my thoughts on the original, like the first two Maze Runner movies, and I just realized, you know, I liked the first one, it was solid enough. The second one let me down. I am not invested in this story, and I figure anybody at this point who's going to see the third Maze Runner, they're going to see it or they're going to not see it. It's, you know, my opinion is not going to matter, and I would much rather roll the dice on a movie that I don't, you know, have to be invested in anything previous to it. It's just, a new movie. So I rolled the dice and rented Revolt from Redbox. And, well, let's talk about it a little bit, I guess. The story and just kind of the nature of what this beast is reminds me in some ways of District 9. More on the kind of like what the feel, where it's not documentary style like that movie sometimes felt, but it is very boots on the ground with some shaky cam, not a ton of shaky cam, and it still has some style to it. It uses slow motion for dramatic moments and puts the camera in a few interesting places now and then, so it doesn't feel like this cheap, sci-fi network made sci-fi movie. It does show its budget, and I'll get to that when I talk about the visuals, but anyway, the tone that they're going for, it reminds me a little bit of District 9, or maybe not the tone, but it's kind of like one of those, you can tell there's a budget, but at the same time, you can also tell that they are working their butts off to make the best use of the budget they possibly can. And I really appreciate that. That goes a long way for me. When I can tell that they're trying to do some things stylistically to still, in every other respect, outside of what their budget, how their budget limits them, make a good good film, a film that's shot, I should say, in a good way, and is quality on that side. The script it also reminds me a little bit of maybe Battle Los Angeles. That's where the plot, I would say, lines up a little bit more, where you've got like a soldier in the midst of this kind of war-torn or run-down kind of environment, trying to run from and survive, these alien attacks. From, in a similar way to Battle Los Angeles, these very, very metallic-oriented type of aliens. So the backdrop, like both of those movies, District 9 and Battle Los Angeles, is the arrival of aliens and violent conflict between them and humanity, with, again, the story taking place in these rundown or war-torn wreckages of civilization. In some cases, it even looks a little post-apocalyptic or Mad Max or stuff like that. But part of that is just because, there are places in Africa that are just a wreck. They don't need, aliens invading. And there's even a reference to that in the script that, like, the world came to an end in Africa before the aliens got here, This movie aims to be more about the characters in the conflict than the conflict itself. I mean, the IMDb synopsis makes it sound like just another run-of-the-mill alien invasion movie, and in some ways it is, at least the net result in my opinion, but what they were going for, at least, is not just about, oh, here are the aliens, how do we stop the aliens, Commander, what's their secret weakness, let's figure it out and then we'll counterattack, or whatever. It's not that kind of thing. It's more down on the character level, or is trying to be. The first half of the movie follows the American soldier, Bo, who has lost his memory and is traveling with this foreign aid worker, and her name is Nadia, and they're both trying to reach the nearest American base in Africa. As they travel, they slowly kind of build a connection with each other, and Bo recovers discovers more and more snippets of his memory as time goes on. The moments of connection between the two characters, Bo and Nadia, sometimes felt mechanical to me, not all the time, but unfortunately the ones that did work for me were usually interrupted by action, and maybe not all, unfortunately, because I thought that the action was really and the suspense was really a stronger part of the movie. But anyway, when the second half of the movie is meant to be motivated by the connection established between these two characters in the first half, because that wasn't really working for me, I started to lose interest a bit in the second half and what was supposed to be motivating the character in the second half of the movie. But Bo's memory was still a point of interest to me, and that wasn't resolved until the very end of the movie. I cared about him recovering it for his own sake, and then I was also curious to discover who is this guy? What's the other shoe that's going to drop? At the end as it's revealed what his background is. Is it going to put him in opposition with the other characters, as can sometimes happen in these kinds of stories? The final answer, the final reveal, came at the very end. I won't spoil it, but it felt to me kind of almost tacked on, like, oh yeah, we got to resolve that memory thing. So here, it felt a little tacked on and unimportant, and so I felt a little bit robbed of a payoff there. Despite those issues, the action and suspense and the pacing, what I was feeling for a lot of the movie was really engaging. The suspense and action were kept up for much of the film, and it really worked for me a lot of the time. There were some quiet moments that were sometimes shockingly interrupted by sudden attacks, and the killing efficiency of the aliens was really striking to me. I mean, they could basically, with their weapons technology, evaporate people in one shot, and it was an effect that really never got old to look at, and it always felt overwhelmingly powerful to me, just like instantly that person's gone with a little puff of vaporous blood and brown stuff or whatever. It was it was an interesting effect. Let's see, the cast was made up almost entirely of new faces, to my eye anyway, which was great. I always appreciate that. There were no, from what, in my book anyway, there were no, amazing performances here, but the script wasn't calling for that. That said, there were a few smaller roles involving characters in their dying moments that the heroes kind of come upon, and I thought that those characters really were played well and with great intensity, which I really appreciated. It really helps to keep the suspense up, keep the stakes high in the other action moments, knowing that, oh man, death feels like this in this movie, So, and then let's see, the stunts and visuals, lots of CG. There was definitely lots of practical stuff going on too, though. Which again, with the shaky cam and the efforts they put into some practical stunts and practical explosions and stuff like that, it had this weird juxtaposition going on between a really grounded feel and then sometimes these very kind of, to my eye, pasted in, CG aliens, but it didn't look like terrible. And my eye, as if you've heard my reviews before, that I'm cursed with an eye that I pick out CG anyway. So even the best CG kind of looks like a really detailed cartoon to me. But some shots, oddly, the more close-up shots of CG aliens, they looked really nice. It was oddly enough the ones that were further away that they looked kind of like superimposed into the shot. But anyway, since most CG looks fake to me, for me, it's more about the design. What is the thing they're creating with the CG? Is that interesting to look at? Is it an interesting concept? How is it affecting the characters and the environment? That can help me buy into CG if it's having an impact on the environment, if the object, the character, is having an impact on the environment and the characters. And the visual design of the aliens, which were all like these robotic drones, which was really kind of a cool idea. They even commented at one point in the movie that there are no pilots in these things. It's like extraterrestrial drone warfare, and which makes a ton of sense. Why would they send ground troops if they're this really advanced civilization? We're already, using drones more and more in military operations, so it makes perfect sense that these aliens would just sit on their other planet and just send out their drones and have their teenage alien boys playing video games to control them or whatever. That wasn't the concept being presented. But anyway, so these robotic drones had a kind of an animalistic quality to them in some ways, and it reminded me a little bit of the robot creatures in the video game Horizon Zero Dawn, if you've played that. Most of them stomped or skittered around on legs, while a massive, creepy, squid-like mothership floated menacingly in the air. So I really appreciated the designs of the aliens. The script didn't talk talk much about the nature of the aliens or these drones, but the visual design hinted at some really interesting concepts, what their power source is, what powers their weapons and the drones themselves, and just interesting concepts that made it engaging for me to look at them every time they showed up. All right, so is there anything to my mind that might spark a worthwhile thought or conversation about moral, philosophical, or spiritual issues? Well, for me, there was almost nothing of note in this movie on that line of thinking, but there was an interesting religious reference. There's a photographer that's found by the protagonists who says in passing that they must have been sent by the Heavenly Father, quote unquote, which is a term for God used in Christian theology and its offshoots. This character, I thought was interesting, wasn't a priest. He wasn't like a particularly religious guy, and it was just kind of like this almost one-off line, He didn't show any other signs of being, quote, this is the religious guy that they run into, So it was interesting to have this reference just really in passing. The character was also likable. Surprise, maybe it's because this movie was shot in Africa that it avoids the Hollywood tendencies that I tend to see to make implicitly Christian characters unlikable hypocrites. But either way, it was a very small but nice change of pace on that kind of note. So anyway, I have no idea what your tastes in movies are. If I were a time traveler, I would go back in time and say, Peter, hey, rent this one sometime. It's a good movie for a night when you don't want to play video games and you want something that you haven't seen that will still be half decent. Know that it will lack the character payoffs it seems to set up in the first half, but the action, suspense, the shooting style, and alien designs will provide a nice diversion for just under 90 minutes. All right, it's rated, what is it rated? It's PG, no, it's R, I think. Oh, I forgot to put this in my notes. Where's that rating? Does it have a rating? Oh, here we go. Rated R for violence, including some grisly images. All right. So those are my thoughts. I'd love to get yours in the comments below. Please consider supporting this channel by becoming a Spirit Blade Insider, which grants you exclusive monthly behind-the-scenes content. For more information about, you can visit our About page, at spiritblade.com, where you'll also find our audio podcasts and our audio dramas. There's a ton more content and community also at christiangeekcentral.com, so I hope you'll join us there soon as we continue, I've lost my button now, as we continue to geek out and seek the truth.